Marlpit Hall may seem unassuming enough, a small historic house nestled along Kings Highway in Middletown, New Jersey. But behind these walls are over 270 years of history, and maybe even a few ghosts. From notable previous owners and Revolutionary War connections to strange objects found hidden under the floorboards. Join Ghosts on the Coast as we attempt to investigate and unravel Marlpit Hall and its many mysteries. There may not have been a colony more divided during the American Revolution than New Jersey, and no more specific area than Monmouth County. This was a war that pitted neighbor against neighbor, and in some cases, brother against brother. Citizens were split between rebelling against Great Britain or staying loyal to King George III. Edward Taylor of Middletown was one of these loyalists. He built the current iteration of Marlpit Hall in the 1750s, though part of the foundation is suspected to date to the 1680s. Taylor was active on the political scene in rallying like-minded individuals against the swell of patriotism and defiance. Because of this, he was arrested in 1776, along with nearly 30 individuals, which included New Jersey Royal Governor William Franklin, son of the famous patriot Benjamin. Over the next few years, Taylor would be arrested several times before finally finding himself under house arrest, where he would remain for the rest of his life. While Taylor was imprisoned in his home, he was the target of a horse theft in 1780 by local patriot militiaman Joseph Murray, whose farm is on what is now the Poracy Park Conservancy. A few months later, in June, Murray was targeted by a group of loyalists who shot him as he worked in his field. As he lay dying, these men bayoneted him to finish the job. It has been alleged that Taylor orchestrated the killing, though that has never been proven. There is also a connection to famed British commander Colonel Tighe, who escaped slavery in Colts Neck, walked to Virginia under Lord Dunmore's proclamation of freedom to slaves who had joined the British Army, and returned to New Jersey in command of his own brigade. This was comprised mainly of escaped slaves and disenfranchised white loyalists. Tighe's name too comes up when analyzing Murray's murder, since Tighe specialized in guerrilla warfare and raids, both large and small. However, if he was involved, this would have been an interesting dynamic, since Taylor owned several slaves himself, even as many loyalists were opposed to the institution. Edward Taylor died in 1783, before the war came to an end. In the 2 centuries following his death, Marlpit Hall went through several owners, and an additional mansion, the Taylor-Butler house, was constructed on the property in 1853. Marlpit Hall itself was threatened with demolition in 1919 when Kings Highway was expanded. It was saved and moved a short distance to its current location by then-owner Mary Holmes Taylor. Then, in 1935, the property was purchased by Mrs. J. Armory Haskell, restored and donated to the Monmouth County Historical Association. It became the first house museum to open in the county. As recently as 2019, during archaeological excavations led by Dr. Richard Veit of Monmouth University, items relating to Taylor's slaves were found hidden under the floorboards of their former quarters. This included clamshells, glass, bones, and corn cobs that were arranged in patterns which suggested spiritual practices such as hoodoo. Such a religion is similar to the more well-known voodoo, in that it thrived in the Americas among Africans, both enslaved and free. It blended African spiritual beliefs with elements of Christianity, which they had eventually adopted or were coerced into following. Most disturbing of all discoveries were a set of iron cuffs found in the 1990s, left unmarked in a box, and were later determined to be slave shackles. Voices from the subjugated at Marlpit could finally be heard, and this became a learning experience for many to see the effects of slavery not down south, but in New Jersey. In total, the Taylor family owned more than 10 slaves, some into the 1830s.
All right, great. Well, welcome to Marlpit Hall. So, history of this house is a little cloudy, so everything kind of goes back to the Monmouth Patent in 1665 after the British received the territory from the Dutch. The governor at the time, Governor Nicholas, divided what is now Middletown pretty much into 36 different plots of land. This was plot 36. and it was given to James Grover Sr., who was one of the town officials in Middletown early on. We don't believe that he did anything with the land, so the land just sat vacant for about 20 or so years. And then his son, James Jr., built initially a small house kind of off to the edge of the property. We don't believe that this is the original house. Okay. Again, there was a lot of back and forth. If you talk to various local historians, a little bit of a dispute. From what I hear and what I believe, I don't believe that this is the original house. Okay. It would have been a little smaller, kind of more so built in the Dutch style, and it was added on in time. But
so there's something on the website that said part of the foundation may date to 1684, but the house itself is 1750-ish.
Right. So 1684 would have been when James Jr. had built his house on the property. Okay. But then we believed that John Taylor purchased the house in the late 1730s. So he's the brother of Edward Taylor, who would eventually buy and live in this house. But then John wasn't happy with the size of the house, decided to sold it to this guy, Barnabas Ryder, who was a farmer out in Long Island. We don't believe he ever lived in the house that was on here, but it was during that time period where we believe that that initial structure was torn down and this house was built.
Okay. Now, this house was moved.
Correct.
Now, one source said it was moved 30 feet. Another source said it was like down the street. Do you know, is there a way to tell exactly where this was? Or?
It probably was about like 50 feet or so, and it kind of in that direction. Okay. So kind of in this area, it wasn't like moved down the street, but it would have been in the middle of what is now Kings Highway. Okay. Yes, that was in 1919. The state was concerned with cars becoming more popular, car accidents with a sharp turn in the road. So they wanted to fix it, and they were going to tear down the house in order to fix the road. And Mary Holmes Taylor III, who was living next door at that time, had petitioned the state to get them to move the house and save it.
I was told the bed in the next room, Mary Holmes Taylor died in that bed. Is that
yeah, I believe, confirmed
fact or just?
I believe Mary II did, yes. Okay. Mary III, she must have been a child because it was like 1880s, drew self-portraits of her cousin, and her brother on the wall. And there was like an itinerary of like when they were going away on vacation and like seeing family and whatnot.
We can see that today. Was this definitely their bedroom, or this is just set up to look like it?
We think it was used as a bedroom. It's not the best bedroom. So we think the Taylors, like Edward and his wife, would have stayed on the second floor. Okay. But yeah.
So I guess it's always been that way, even in the Victorian era, from where we come from, servants on the third floor, employers on the second floor, then there's the first floor with the parlor and everything. Mm-hmm. Now, do you happen to know, because in the Victorian era, the way we have the museum set up, with the husband and wife would have slept in separate bedrooms back then, do you know if that was the case in the Revolutionary War, or you think they would have shared this little bed?
I would say, yeah, they probably would have shared the double bed. Okay. Yeah.
Let's go see that dining room then.
Sure.
Love to eat. We're always talking about food on Goats on the Coast, so dining room should be the next stop. Okay, so Edward Taylor, placed here under house arrest.
Right.
How many family, roughly, if he's with his wife?
Most likely his wife. So the Taylors had 5 children. All 5 were pretty much grown by the time of the American Revolution. Okay. So we know that a number of them had moved out. His son, George, served as a officer in the local Loyalist militia during the war as well.
And do you know, for the house arrest, like, was that so strict as, like, not even outside? Like, could he walk his property, or it was literally, like, you're in this house and that's it? Is that known? I mean, it might not even be.
So we do have a letter. When he's under house arrest, he writes a letter to the colonial legislature, to New Jersey legislature, and he complains about how he's not able to view the work that his enslaved people are doing in his grist mill. That's a little distance from the house. So from the sounds of that, it seemed like he was pretty strictly confined to within the house. Mm-hmm. Certainly wasn't able to walk around his property.
So they must have been keeping pretty close tabs on him, because he was arrested several times. Mm-hmm. And if he was afraid to even, like, where the grist mill would be, what, maybe where the Taylor-Butler house is now, like in that area, you think? Or
definitely not far,
so
I would say.
He was afraid to even go that short distance, then they must have been really like keeping watch on him to make sure he wasn't leaving the house or starting things up.
Well, you know, so to keep in mind, he's under house arrest because he's keeping an eye on local troop movements.
Right.
So clearly, he had a trouble whenever he was outside of being a little too noisy. So this house, we definitely know more than next door, but...
So this would have been the kitchen,
Correct.
and this would have been entirely the slaves' domain?
For the most part. So we're looking at the hearth right now. I will note that this is not the original hearth from the house. When Mrs. Jamry Haskell purchased the house in the 1930s, the hearth had been taken out, so then she had it put back in. It is built on the initial foundation, but most likely when the Taylors were living here, this would have been built in more, would have had maybe a bee-high oven or some other features inside there, so it wouldn't have been this open.
So you said they had about 10 to 12 slaves. Do you know how many would have been doing the cooking in here? Maybe just one, you think? A couple working together? Or?
For the most part, you know, with slavery in New Jersey, it probably would have been everyone really helping out with cooking and domestic tasks. Because again, of those 10 or 12, it might have been 3 or 4 who was living here at a time.
Right.
So kind of everyone helped out and pitched in with everything.
So these shackles, these were just found in a box that had been marked from years earlier, and then somebody had just said, oh, these are slave shackles.
Right, so these shackles were found outside on the property in probably around the 1980s.
Okay.
And then they were brought back to our headquarters in Freehold, as you said, put in a box. Now, before this exhibit, our curators knew that we had it in our collection, and they just wanted to get some confirmation because obviously, besides finding them on the property, we knew nothing about them.
Right.
So they sent them out to Dr. Linda Epps, who has the 1804 consultant company, and they pretty much asked her, hey, could you verify whether or not these shackles were used to enslave people? And based on the letter that we received back, she was able to confirm that shackles like these have been documented to restrain humans.
So these were found just in the ground? It's just they were dug up? Or?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
I mean, they're in pretty good condition considering they were just directly in the ground. So I guess the next stop would be the slave quarters then to empty that.
Sure.
Tie in the exhibit and everything.
Here, I can take you guys upstairs through the main staircase, and then there is the one room where we still have the exposed corn cobs, if you wanted to get footage of that.
See those.
So this is the room where we have the corn cobs. If you just be careful of your head, but where the floorboards are taken up, if you look down, you still have some corn cobs down there.
So this is the exact spot.
Yes. So this room would have been used for storage for the Taylor family. You know, it's amazing too because the house was moved. You would think that would mix everything up, but
Yeah, I mean, like, what would entail, like, today when they move houses, I mean, it's much easier with the technology and the lifts and everything. Do you know what would entail moving a house in the early 1900s? I mean, it seems like remarkable that anything could be in this good of condition having been moved.
yeah. And fortunately, it was a short move, but I think they rolled it on, they lifted it off the foundation, rolled it over on logs, and then had it on support beams for about a year before laying it down the new foundation.
That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy that they could do that back then. And with all the brickwork not cracking, I mean, if anything is uneven, the whole house would shift and you'd get, you know.
Right. And the house is certainly, I mean, you feel it when you're walking around, especially downstairs. It's that fun house effect, I like to say.
Look at the dining room, that one door going into the, I guess, the modern kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a little
wonky.
Yeah.
We used to bring, back in the day, they used to bring marbles, and they would just put it on the floor, and they would watch as it would just go on its own. So we attribute to the move, and then also our curators believe that there are 2 different builders of the house, and one was significantly more competent than the other. So quality of the build kind of impacted it as well.
And you see, I mean, a lot of houses at this time period, like even the Spy House, like one section and then another section was built, and they would have all had different builders because it would have been stretched across a century or so.
Right.
So that makes perfect sense. So slave quarters, I mean, they were obviously in here because they placed the corn cobs,
Sure.
but they would have slept in that room, or?
Correct. So this room would have been more so just storage for the family.
Okay.
So
it'd be odd. I mean, I guess there'd be no way for anyone to know this, why they would place the corn cobs in here if they would have been sleeping in there. Is there a reason for that, or?
I mean, I would assume it definitely tells us that they would have spent time in this room and maybe felt comfortable enough that they could leave something in this room and not be caught by the Taylors.
So they're using this room for storage. Taylor's using this storage, so the slaves would have been in here retrieving stuff, I guess, for their masters, and then at some point they put those corn cobs in the floor.
Correct.
So do you know, like, would they have slept up there on this platform, down here?
Definitely would have been able to space themselves out.
Okay.
Kind of like now, there wouldn't have been any furniture, so there would have not have been anything in their way. Like I said, maybe 3 or 4 individuals at a time. So probably would have spaced out throughout the entire room.
So they're sleeping on mats, basically, or just directly on the floor?
Yeah. So most likely called like a slave sack, where they would have filled with hay, maybe a light blanket, and all their possessions.
So notice there's no, they have no fireplace.
Correct.
Would they have been able, do you think, to get warmth off these bricks from downstairs? Do you think this might maybe is too high up for them to have felt anything?
No, the heat definitely would have transpired up, so it would have been comfortable during the winter months, but during the summer months,
Yeah.
it would definitely been very, very hot up here.
So this exhibit beneath the floorboards, this house has always been a historical attraction, but
Right.
it would seem that that exhibit kind of put this place on the map, I would say. That's what really made this a destination, not only for visitors, but for your lecture series. There's always people talking about it. Dr. Veit doing archaeological talks. So my question for you, you're an educator. You work here as well. We were talking last week, you and I, slavery in New Jersey. How to present it, because it's a very important topic to our history, to understanding our past culture, but it's also very uncomfortable. Makes people uncomfortable. People almost don't want to hear it. They think, oh, that's a southern thing, not New Jersey, not Monmouth County, certainly not Middletown. But you have this location that's, I would say, pretty gutsy in putting an exhibit like that together. How do you make this topic accessible to people without coming across as, say, shock value or just trying to bring up all these horrible things? How would you and your organization present that and get people to look at it in a different light, that they would be interested in it and not too scared to want to delve further?
Sure. So I think that our curators, Bernadette and Joe, have done an amazing job at just trying to approach this topic. And as you were saying, Greg, to have people want to come and learn about it. When you read the panels, we look at the stories, we pay a lot of attention on that emotional kind of struggles that the enslaved people went through. Talking about Matilda and Hannah both being torn away from their children. And that's something, whereas, today in 2024, we don't have firsthand connections or experiences with slavery here in the United States, but we all can relate to, losing a family member or having to move away or not be with someone who we want to be with. So I think that they did a good job at just making it about the human experience and reminding the people who come in that the enslaved people, even if we don't know much about their personal histories, they were here and they were human. And they would have gone through and experienced the same thing that any other human would have, love, loss, tragedy. And just because they were enslaved didn't make them any different from anyone else.
Does anybody ever come in and see the exhibit or see the shackles and they're just absolutely shocked? Does that happen? Are people generally warm to the idea of such an exhibit?
I think that there are a lot of people who come in and they're surprised. We have a good mix of people who have read about the exhibit online and traveled here knowing what the exhibit was about. But we also just have a lot of people who are from the Middletown or northern Monmouth County area who, when they see the open flag outside, they say, hey, I've lived in this county for 20, 30, 40 years, never been in that house, I want to see it. So I think those individuals tend to be a bit more shocked because they didn't know exactly what they were walking into. But one of the things I'm happy about this exhibit is we're able to keep this house and this site open on a consistent schedule every week where the public knows that they can come here. Because before this, even before the pandemic, it wasn't open as frequently, I know, as we would have hoped.
Right.
But it gives us a good reason to keep the lights on and the door open.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And I guess one last one. But is Marlpit Hall actually haunted? There have been no previous investigations conducted, nor are there any established myths and legends, or even ghost stories. Until now. In speaking to docents who have worked there over the years, they have reported definite instances of paranormal activity, and the feeling that they were never quite alone. What will we find on our investigation? Part of what we do as paranormal investigators is to try to give a voice to the deceased. In some cases, the spirits may have more of a chance to speak their minds now than when they were alive. While we hope to communicate with the spirit of Edward Taylor, including asking him a few personal questions I have about the murder of Joseph Murray, we also hope we can talk to any former slaves who once inhabited this property. In so doing, perhaps we can shed even more light on a horrific yet lesser-known side of New Jersey history. Ghosts on the Coast will now conduct the first ever paranormal investigation of Marlpit Hall. We would like to thank Joe Zemla and the Monmouth County Historical Association for allowing this to be possible.
Okay, that way I can have people when they come in and out or give them the stories, because when they first walk in, I introduce myself, I tell them who I am, the history of the house, and then we guide them to, because this is a self-guided tour, the learning boards on them. So we start with that one, explain that, and then we go right into the kitchen family, which is the slaves.
Okay.
All right, and then they do their tour. But I've been sitting here and you can hear noises upstairs of like banging, and there's nobody upstairs because that upstairs is closed.
Oh, people are not allowed normally upstairs?
No, normally no.
No, okay.
And in that time frame, has it been active the entire time, or has it kind of slowly developed the longer you've been here?
Depends who you're speaking to. If you're talking to me about it, I would tell you it's been doing it for a while. Because I've seen different things through the years. Felt different things.
Yeah.
One was a few months back. I was in the other section of the house, and I heard like a bang, like a footstep kind of thing, like somebody was walking, and nobody was in that section of the house. The other docent was over here in this section. So when I went over to her and asked her if anybody else in the house, she said no, the other person that was here had left like 15 minutes ago.
Physically goes on in the bedroom that you experienced in there
No,
itself?
not really.
Okay. So
And
we're
just
out-
the music upstairs.
you want to take a walk up or?
Yeah, you can come up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so you've been here, I guess, by yourself a lot.
Oh, many, many times.
And any other experiences, noises?
Yeah, a couple of times I heard a knocking upstairs, and I thought it was an animal, but it was almost like so rhythmic. I don't know that it could be an animal, but we don't know what was up there. No. There's definitely something here. I don't know if haunting is what it is, but I do believe there's something here.
What is something you would hope to see tonight? What's something you would hope to experience or hope that we would be able to see or experience?
Well, I hope that one of the enslaved people would reach out in some way.
Yeah, that's what we would hope too.
Yeah.
When we do this investigation, what is something you would hope that we find? This is a question I asked Stephanie. If you were, say, doing the investigation with us, I know you can't make it. What's something you would hope us to find, or somebody to reach out to us?
I think just that human experience and that like human voice, not knowing what you guys are going to find, but hearing not just from the Taylors, but also maybe even from the enslaved who would have lived here. because again, this was their house as well. So I would definitely hope that they feel comfortable enough to make their presence felt, much as our curators have tried to have their presence seen and felt in the exhibit.
Great. Thank you very much. We ask that if there are any students here, I know it's kind of noisy right now, but just speak to us loud and clear, and hopefully we can hear you and we can have a conversation with you. We have a wire on this bed. If you want to let us know that you're here, you can lay down on the bed. You can touch one of these, maybe go up just like that. You want to let us know you're here. Those are the ways to do it. Do you like having these ladies work in your house?
I just said don't. I said don't.
How many slaves do you have?
Always twice.
Are you sick?
Can you do that again?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was.
What dinner in this room.
Come out?
I'd really like to know what happened with the Edward Taylor's horse and who stole it. Does any of you know what happened?
There's a guy speaking like in the back.
Do you regret owning slaves? I'd really like to know.
Quiet. Yeah, a female. What is that?
Make the lights go off if it was you who put something under the floorboard.
Here's an apple. Yeah. That voice is the same one that said, "Here's an apple."
Do you like Colonel Ty? Did you ever meet him?
A lot. Oh my God.
You want to take our picture here? Our group picture?
Yeah, this is
Many
really
a group picture taken on the stairs. It's
tight.
beautiful, yeah.
Wow. That is.
So Tom was saying that one day a very elderly man came in here. He was a relative. He said, "Oh, my grandfather's wallpaper is still up." I'm like,
Not all the rooms are connected. This is amazing, and it's in such great condition.
Well, you know, when this house was built, it was the first house like this in Monmouth County. This was like the house in Monmouth County. And they spared no expense when they came here. And they actually put in between this floor and the basement, they put in some kind of insulation because she didn't want the smells and the noises coming up. But the thing to really notice in this house are the fireplaces. Yes. They are gorgeous. They're all different.
We know that Mary Holmes Taylor II had ran a Sunday school. Okay. And we believe, as a staff, that it must have been this room and the neighboring room that they had used. Okay. So one of the interesting discoveries in this room, as you can see, there is some water damage and a lot of the wallpaper has begun to peel off the walls. But if you look behind the door, take my flashlight out, we actually see a number of kind of sideways face portraits which were done, and they're all signed MHT for Mary Holmes Taylor. We believe Mary Holmes Taylor III, of Edward Taylor, a cousin, and then down here of herself. And they're all dated July 12th, 1880.
Wow.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of years right here.
Yes.
Did you say 1812, the first one?
Might be 1892, 72?
This house was built in what, 52?
52, yes.
So this one definitely says 73. Now when I say, oh, these, so yeah, it might be 72 and 73.
And I believe eventually July 31st, 1873 mentions that they're on vacation. So.
Oh yeah, vacation.
That's funny. I mean, this is something we never would have seen, but kind of has a certain charm to it, even with the wallpaper coming off.
Yeah.
Nice. At Marlpit, you haven't really had any experiences, but you said at this house you maybe felt something happened, or?
So this house, I haven't had anything too major. There was one time where, whenever I come to one of our houses, the first thing I do is just walk around, make sure everything's in order, nothing's damaged. We haven't had any, small animals invade or whatever. And I'd done it for this house, and everything was in order. And then I went about just doing some light cleaning, dusting, brooming, that sort of stuff. And when I was downstairs on the first floor in the reception room, I noticed that one of the pencils from our museum store was now sitting in the middle of the room on the floor, which I didn't have any of those pencils in our sign-in sheet, so I knew it wasn't from there. Our museum store is behind doors, so it wasn't out, it's just something I can't explain why that pencil was sitting there.
Someone's trying to get your attention, I guess.
Right, so nothing crazy. I've been in this house long enough to, I don't feel like there's something that's out to get me or anything like that, but certainly something that might have a little bit of a sense of humor to just kind of make sure they know that we're here.
Seems like a nice house. I'd like to live here.
That was a sentence. I don't know.
Try to help us understand.
Yes. Really lower. Really lower. It's a trap? Trap. Be on camera. No, I said be on camera. Yeah.
Well, if you want to be on camera, now's your chance. Well, if you want to be on camera, now's your chance. Who's the farmer? Who's the farmer?
Hello. Hello. I don't know if it's hello or I do. Either hello or I do. It's either hello or I do. That was a deep voice. Down there. Yeah. Oh. Get out. Down there again. It almost sounded like a proper gentleman kind of thing, like, oh, hey, Hannah.
Like a violin?
Yeah, there's a weird instrument. I thought that was somebody in here. Thing is, Nail said thing
When you said coming to fireplace, you said I did. Can you try to cover your mantle again, please? Really give it your all. I believe it's going to be a little less.
The whole thing. It was the whole entire thing. We're going to be leaving in a few minutes. Can you give us one last burst of energy? Say goodnight to us loud and clear, and we'll be asleep right now.
We're going to go now, but thank you very much for communicating with us tonight. Thank you for touching the lights and talking to us. You were very nice, and we had a good time here with you.
All right, so we've just wrapped up our 2-location investigation, Marlpit Hall and the Taylor-Butler house. This was a surprise, total surprise to come here. We thank Teresa, the docent, the other 2 docents that joined us as well. Of course, Joe Zevla, the Monmouth County Historical Association, for letting us come in here. We got a lot of activity, I think, in this house. Marlpit, a couple things here and there. As you always know, when we do these, most of the evidence we get is when we go home, when we have a chance to sit there, listen to stuff, slow it down, speed it up, pause it, keep playing it over and over again. So by the time you guys see this video, you will know how active this investigation is. Marlpit, little bit. I think there's going to be more when we get home and review. But here at the Taylor-Butler house, especially this room right here, the front parlor, the busiest our EMF tripwire has ever been. I mean, it was like a light show. And it was even better when Christian and I were not in the room. As soon as we would leave, go look, take pictures in another room, the thing would light up. So I don't know, maybe they don't like this. Maybe they were too crowded. But yeah, so this room is very active. We had about 5 hours tonight to do 2 locations, which this house is so huge. So to do this, even an 8-hour investigation in this house would be difficult because there's so many rooms. So for us, we just pick at random. We asked the docents, what rooms do you think would be active? They guided us. We listened to them because we don't know this house like we do the Strauss Mansion, which is our headquarters, so to speak. So this room was very active. The 3rd floor was active. And in Marlpit Hall, I would say the third floor slave quarters were probably more active, especially when we started talking about Colonel Ty. We got a couple of direct full sentence responses. So on that note, are these 2 places haunted? I don't know. It's a tough call to say that there's a force that's haunting this place or Marlpit Hall, but there's definitely something here. It's intelligent. It's responding to our questions. We think it likes us. It definitely likes the docents who were so very nice, and the Historical Association's done a great job fixing these places up. So whatever ghosts are here, I think they have a great place to spend their afterlife, and they seem to be nice and enjoyed the fact that we were talking to them. So thank you very much for watching. This was an incredible evening, and we hope to maybe be back at some point for more.